In this episode, we speak with Doug Brien, president of Roofstock and co-founder and CEO of Mynd. Roofstock is building the world's leading single-family real estate investment platform. It has surpassed $6 billion in transactions and continues to disrupt the industry, deploying technology and innovation to build a vibrant, data-rich service for real estate investing. Doug is a former professional athlete turned entrepreneur on a mission to make investing in single-family real estate simple and accessible for all. He began his career as an NFL placekicker, playing for 12 seasons and winning 1 Super Bowl. I'm your host, RJ Lumba. We hope you enjoy the show. If you like the episode, click to follow.
RJ Lumba is the executive chairman of Market Insight Media and the managing partner of GrowthCap. He is the host of Great Entrepreneurs, a podcast for driven entrepreneurs and business owners. Our podcast covers all topics related to the entrepreneurial journey, from ideation to execution to optimization and to reaping the rewards of a well-run business. In the minutes ahead, we'll share with you unique insights and tactics from some of today's most accomplished and inspiring entrepreneurs.
Doug, thanks so much for taking the time to chat with us today. It's a delight to be with you.
Yeah, great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
So I think this is a first where we've had an NFL player, successful NFL player, turn entrepreneur and be on our podcast. We'd love to hear about the start. I'm sure our audience always loves to hear about a professional athlete. Tell us about your background. You went to Cal, you played there, I presume, and then you decided, I want to give it a go to make it in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, the slightly longer version is I grew up a soccer player, aspired to be a college soccer player, went to one of the best high school football programs in America, De La Salle High School out here in Concord, California. And my senior year, they didn't have a kicker. And so they were kind of asking around on the football team, like, who can kick? And I put my hand up as a guy, like I was the guy who took the penalty kicks and direct kicks and made goals from far out on the field. And it was like, all right, well, let's go out for a tryout. And basically I kicked a PAT over the track field and over the scoreboard. And they said, how do we sign you up for this? And so I literally kicked 1 year in high school and then got an opportunity from that 1 year of experience to walk on at Cal. I mean, I honestly had no idea how good I could become. But the idea of going to Cal was compelling enough for me to forego soccer. Because the reality is Cal can't play football, it was Pac-10 in those days, and soccer. And so I decided to kind of roll the dice because kicking came quite easily to me. And ended up starting and doing well at Cal and getting drafted in the 3rd round by the 49ers. And then it's a little bit of like a Forrest Gump story where all of a sudden I was a rookie on the 49ers and we won the Super Bowl my first year. And that's kind of where my entrepreneurial journey started because I've always had that entrepreneurial itch. And I literally took the Super Bowl check from my first year with the 49ers and bought my first property. So I bought a house, renovated it, sold it for a profit. And I ended up playing in the NFL for 12 years. But like my real estate investment journey was kind of ongoing every offseason, including getting an MBA at Tulane when I played for the Saints. And so when I retired in 2005 at the age of 35, it was just a very clear, obvious transition for me to keep going in real estate. And what was interesting and what ended up creating this entrepreneurial idea was the fact that the foreclosure crisis, the great financial crisis was happening around the same time I retired, or it was at least just beginning. And I was getting into real estate and asking the question, like, why aren't investors buying all these properties from the banks? And just very quickly got into entrepreneurial mode, tested a thesis with a partner. It worked. And so we just carefully scaled the idea. And over a 7.5-year period, bought 17,000 homes and ended up building a company that we took public and ran for 2 years and then sold. And so it was like, a very natural progression from being in the NFL, learning how to invest, starting a business, and really kind of applying, my story to like student athletes or people say like, how does someone who played sports go on and do well in business? And, I would say like so many serious athletes, student athletes end up acquiring skills, like the things that made them so good in sports also tend to make people very good in business. It's like perseverance, hard work, teamwork, pulling a group together with a common vision, figuring out how to go after, whatever the goal is and deal with disappointment and setbacks. And it's like, it's a different game, but at the end of the day, it's a game and, companies are teams. And I found that, former athletes who like have some intellectual curiosity, can end up doing quite well in the business world.
Well, the position of place kicker is a unique one because like when you're going out onto the field, I mean, the spotlight is on you, and I can imagine that's a high pressure situation. Is that something that you were naturally inclined to do well at? I mean, you didn't feel the pressure too much. You liked the moment. You almost cherished the moment. How did you manage that? And I mean, there's a TV on you, there's like 50,000 fans watching you. Were you able to just stay focused in those situations?
Yeah, it's funny. It's a common question. And I'd say it's a little bit of nature and a little bit of nurture. So I've always been a very, even keeled person, just not get too high, not get too low. Like that kind of a disposition, I'd say, is very helpful. But then I partnered with that with like kind of going back to my example of why athletes can do well as entrepreneurs is like, okay, where do I need to be really great? And what are the resources that are accessible to me? So, like, this was right when Tiger Woods was in his prime and he had a mental coach. And I remember saying to myself, like, why don't I have a mental coach? Like, the difference between good and great in the NFL, like, there's 32 jobs in the world. And there's probably, 100 that have the physical ability to do it. Why is the one third that has a job and the other two thirds are at home sitting on their couch? It's between their ears. It's like who can be the most consistent in the biggest moments? And it's like, yeah, it comes naturally in some ways, but like it's a learned skill. Like there are actual skills and meditation and visualization and compartmentalization. And like you can practice these things and actually become quite good. So I got really, really engrossed with the world of sports psychology and had a sports psychologist and literally spent an hour a day just on like my mental practice, weekly calls with my mental coach, going over notes from practice, all my stats. So like really got good at that. And so yeah, I mean, to survive in the NFL as a place kicker, I mean, it's literally like go search most stressful jobs in the world,
Hmm.
and it will every time show up in the top five as the most stressful jobs in the world. And yeah, you got to block all that stuff out. I mean, everything you said, like the natural human thing is to like, think about those things. Well, that is not helpful when you're out there on the field. In fact, thinking at all is not helpful. And if you watch a pitcher, if you watch a golfer, if you watch a kicker, like when they are out there in that moment, like there is nobody home and they are like trained to like get themselves into the zone. The zone can be measured. It's like brain waves slow down, move into like a feeling state in your body. And so the question I always get asked is like, what's it like to be a CEO or an entrepreneur versus a kicker? And it's like, oh my gosh, it's so easy. Because some people like it's like I mean it's a stressful job like starting a company like it's a stressful thing,
Hmm.
but compared to the binary world of being an NFL kicker where like complete success or failure depends on putting a piece of leather between two poles and it's binary. It's either good or it's not. And you got one
Hmm.
shot.
Hmm.
In the business world, like you got like multiple shots. And if you're not getting it right, you can bring in other resources and get help and try again and again. Like it's just very rare that it's one and done. And so to me, it's always like people say, how come you're not so stressed about this? I'm like, because we're going to figure it out. We're going to try this. And if it doesn't work, then we're going to try that. And if that doesn't work, we're going to try that. That's the entrepreneurial journey. And it's like, it's been a real benefit to me because you could think of it as training at altitude.
Hmm.
Kicking in the NFL is training at altitude. And now I'm down at sea level and it's like nothing is as stressful.
Is there something you learned from your coach back then, or something you would practice mentally that you still use today? I mean, I'm sure a lot of it's just second nature now, but is there still something you'll say to yourself to help bring you back to focus and execute, and I guess just stay really mindful of what the objective is?
Yeah, I'd say two basic things. And I mean, look, the most stressful kind of like you kind of have to make it work is like I end up doing a lot of public speaking, right? You can't like screw it up and be like, yeah, I'm gonna come back tomorrow and try again. It's like, no, you got to get it right. Big meetings, like with investors, like you kind of like you got 1 hour to convince them of X, Y, or Z. And so two tactics that I use in those situations sometimes, especially like if I am feeling pressure. And by the way, part of it is not being afraid of pressure. Pressure is a good thing. Pressure can either create diamonds or crush something. And it's
Hmm.
kind of up to the individual. Like, are you going to harness the power of the pressure and use it to your benefit or not? And so breathing is a way to like get out of your head and into your body and just calm your nervous center. Like there's breathing techniques where you breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. It's actually like scientifically proven to like calm your nervous system. Like if anyone who's listening, ever gets nervous, just like try that. The other is like self-talk, like reframing, like, okay, why am I anxious? Why, like, I don't belong in this board meeting. I'm nervous about being up on the stage. Like, people know more than me, and I'm self-conscious about like the entire spotlight on being on me. And I would reframe things in kicking. Like, one of the big challenges for kickers sometimes are really bad conditions, right? Like muddy field, cold, footballs are really hard, the wind is blowing, where's the ball going to go? And it's like reframing that to like I have the right cleats on. I know I'm not going to slip. The wind is my friend, even if it's in my face. Like it's going to help the ball get up higher, so it's less likely to get blocked. It's like there's just a reframing you can do. It's called in the world of sports psychology self-talk. I'm the most knowledgeable person in this room. I know more about my business than anybody else. I know more about XYZ and kind of like just reframing that self-doubt to kind of really pump yourself up in some ways. And so, those are natural things that happen to everybody. We're all human and they're just, so those are two techniques that I still use as an entrepreneur.
And since you were able to kind of develop all these mental skills fairly early on in your professional life, when you started bringing people on board, did you find that there was a big gap in between what you knew and you were capable of doing and the folks that you were bringing onto your team? And so you had to kind of impart this wisdom that you had onto them. I would imagine for a lot of entrepreneurs, there's a bit of impatience with folks on your team maybe not performing up to your standard or what you think they're capable of doing. Was
Yeah.
there like this adjustment process to learn the most effective leadership style for you?
Yeah. I mean, look, leadership style is like a lifelong journey. And it's like, I've been working on that game, my leadership game for 15 years. Well, it's all coming up on 20 years that I've been like out of the NFL and working. So that's a never ending process. And yeah, for sure. When you come from the NFL, when you think about standards and expectations, is like you don't end up in that world without those like really high, unreasonable expectations. And so, yeah, I do think that's something I bring. And there's some wisdom from that, but like I'd say the way that I've been able to use it, and it maybe points to one of, what I would call one of my superpowers as an entrepreneur is attracting amazing talent. Like when you come out with a big, compelling vision and like a big idea that you're going to go after with like very high standards and kind of like a background of doing big, interesting things, what that does is help you bring on people who are smarter and more talented in different ways than you. And so if you were to look at kind of the two companies I've founded, what are the things that have been right? What are the commonalities? I think for sure one that stands out is like quality of leadership team. Like just both companies, these are leadership teams that people like still stay in touch and talk about like, God, I'd love to be on a leadership team like that again. And part of the art is like not just bringing the talented people in, but connecting them, making them together, making them feel like they're on a team. And there's a lot of things you can do. Like it can happen by accident, but it usually doesn't. There's usually like a lot of intentionality behind both building a corporate culture, but like that starts at the leadership level. And so I spend a lot of time and focus on the people we bring in, the culture and the expectations at the management level, because
Hmm.
that's what ends up trickling down to the rest of the company. And at the end of the day, culture eats strategy for breakfast. So you got to have the right company culture that meets the, business objectives that you're going after.
Are there a couple like pillars to your culture where it's like every candidate that you interview, in order for them to progress and reach the final stages, they must have these qualities?
Yeah, I mean, I'll name a couple that come to mind, and these end up showing up as like cultural principles so that like our recruiting team can use them to identify the right people. We use them in our performance reviews to like reward the high performers, the culture fits, and move those that are not out of the organization. So growth mindset. It's like I can't stand to be in a meeting room. Like I don't ever want to do something that's like easy and not like growth oriented, right? So what that means is you're doing things people have not done before. And there's nothing I can't stand more than sitting in a room where you have people who are just saying all the reasons that it won't work.
Mm.
I mean, we should absolutely talk about the risks, but
Hmm.
like, let's start with yes. Let's start with the idea that it's possible. So when someone, has those kind of questions or says something can't be done, I'd say, what would need to be true for it to happen? Like, just
Hmm.
tell me one thing that you think's not true that would need to be true, and then we can start to like expand the growth mindset around that thing and say like, okay, well, why can't we get that? Why can't we be that? Why can't we do that? Like, let's talk about that.
Hmm.
Like, I'm gonna figure out the path on like how we make this possible. So growth mindset. I think respect is super important. You just can't have a team of people that are just like not respectful to others. It breaks the team dynamic. And then lastly, I'd say like team players.
Hmm.
That can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people, but some examples are the idea of getting it right, not being right. I also don't want to sit around the table where everybody's banging their head. It's like, and they're just trying to be right. It's like, guys, let's back up. What are we trying to do? We're trying to find the right idea to push this idea or the company forward. And it's like, I'm going to throw out my idea, but like, I'm totally open to the idea that someone else has a better idea. In fact, I hope that's the case. Like, I don't care. I really don't care. I just want to get it right. I do
Hmm.
not need to be right. And if you have a room full of people that share that, it's like that's a powerful combination.
Hmm. And back to your entrepreneurial journey. So after you build up this portfolio, buying, let's say, deep value real estate and taking it public, what happens next?
Like we're trying to like really unlock the power of a new asset class. So single family rental, my first company was we bought 17,000 homes. My second company, Mynd, recently merged with Roofstock. I'm back with my old partner, Gary Beasley. We actually worked together at my first company, Waypoint. And what we're trying to do is like unlock the power of investing into single family rentals, both for retail investors and institutional investors. It's a very complicated asset class because the assets are dispersed, like you don't have that geographic concentration. And so what it means is it's in some ways really like a logistics management company to like
Mm.
manage all the homes and all the service requests and all the different investors. So you have to be really on top of your game as it pertains to technology and data. And we're a growing company, north of 100 million of revenue. We manage for some of the largest institutions in the world, over 5,000 retail investors. And, we think ultimately we should be managing over 1 million homes. And so we're on that journey to like really make the asset class more accessible to investors that want to invest in it because it's a really compelling risk adjusted investment, like buying and owning single family homes because people want a place to live. Like they want to live in a home. And today, for a whole bunch of reasons, interest rates is a new reason. People need to rent homes and be in the communities with the better schools for their families. And it also just doesn't always make sense for people to own homes. I think people during the foreclosure crisis learned a very hard lesson. There's a lot of people who owned homes who maybe weren't in the right position to own that home. And so today they're renting. And, we have a whole industry of renting. But, I think as a community of single family rental entrepreneurs, there's also a realization like we can do better on the service perspective because it is such a hard asset class to manage. So we're very focused on delivering better service. And frankly, a lot of that is having more scale, better data, better technology, and better service oriented people. And so that's really how we spend our time every day when we wake up and why we're so excited about the future of the business.
And has it been a market increase year to year in terms of the number of homes being converted, say, into single family home rental?
Yeah, it's definitely slowed down because there's a lot fewer investors buying single family rentals because of
Mm,
interest rates. But at the same time, build to rent has become a new thing. So there's a lot of homes being built, purpose built as rentals. And, a decade ago, that didn't happen really at all. And so the number of rental homes has continued to grow a little bit, but not nearly at the pace that it had in the past. I'm sure that will change again when, interest rates fluctuate. But it is arguably the largest asset class in the world,
mhm,
roughly 17 million single family rentals. And that's going to probably go up over time. It needs to go up over time because we have a housing shortage in America. We need more houses,
mhm.
and a bunch of them should be rentals.
And how do you interact with other platforms like Avenue?
We have a lot of different operating partners, so it really depends on the part of the business. We, leverage local brokers, inspectors, data providers, software providers. I mean, we really think of ourselves as like a central platform, and we do the core essential things and then like plug in capabilities from third parties where it makes sense. But we want to create a cohesive user experience for our residents and our investors.
Got it. We're coming up on the tail end of the conversation. I have two final questions. One is, can you tell us about a person who has had a profound influence on you?
So I would say my high school football coach, like they literally made a Hollywood movie about him called Perfect Effort. It's about De La Salle High School.
Mm,
And they still have it. This record will probably never be broken. I think it's 142 wins in a row. It's like 13 seasons, never lost a game.
mm.
And the most amazing thing about it is the objective wasn't winning. It was really to just develop young men. And so his impact like really had a profound impact on me and really everybody who's been a part of that program. And so it's like when I think about the things that I've been able to do in my life and kind of going back to my learnings as a student athlete, it really started at De La Salle High School.
Excellent. Last question. Can you tell us about a charity cause or other endeavor that you're passionate about?
Yeah, I'm generally passionate about youth and entrepreneurship. I've been on the board of a group called Build for a number of years. My family's getting involved with a nonprofit called Rivet, and both are really trying to bring, access to capital, educating young kids and really making the idea of entrepreneurship real with them. I think we need more of that in the world, and these kids are the future. And, access to education and financial resources is not fair or equally distributed. And so I like to spend some of my time really trying to help these kids have the confidence and wherewithal to kind of create their own future as they grow and develop.
Fantastic. Well, Doug, want to thank you again for taking the time. This has been a wonderful conversation.
Yeah, likewise, RJ. Appreciate it.